Hello everyone, I'm Matt Williamson. It is Mailbag Day, and as usual, you guys flooded me with great questions, Steeler related of course, and a lot of them are about this recent news about there's a divide or a skiff or whatever between Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson. So I just kind of lumped them all together, figured I'd bring it up. I'm not in the building. I had never heard those things. So there's that. Now, what I'm guessing is, well, I do think some players and coaches got frustrated with Wilson down the end, because if you watch the tape, there's a lot of first and especially second reads that are open that he doesn't throw the football. And a lot of them are in the middle of the field. And I will say, I bet there was a lot of frustration and some character conflicts in that building during this losing streak because they're competitive. You know, that doesn't mean they hate each other, can't work with each other. It's a toxic environment. Tomlin's losing control. It's not what I'm saying. But when you lose a few games in a row in this league, people bite at each other and they get pissed off. You know, I mean, if they didn't, I would be concerned. Now, I will say Sean Payton couldn't stand Wilson because Wilson plays the way Wilson plays. Aaron Rodgers is like that. And the way Wilson plays is frustrating for a coach because, as I've told you, he's not a progression reader, even at this stage of his career. So if I draw up this wonderful pass play with a perfect cover two beater and first read isn't there, but the second one is, and he doesn't pull the trigger, nothing frustrates his coaches more. I mean, that I've said this many times. I know you have some new listeners. Good to have you. But there's nothing offensive play designers hate more as a rule of thumb of I called the right play and you didn't throw the football. And I think Wilson over his career, but especially the last 5 years, is as guilty of that as just about any veteran in the league. All these guys have strengths and weaknesses, and that could be frustrating. I don't know if they have a great relationship, a bad relationship, or not, but I'm just saying I could see these angles, and I think it's crazy not to at least think that way. Betonline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Betonline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, along those lines, Scranzy also offers this up, too. We know the Steelers quarterbacks held on the ball too long this season. Is this a failure of the QBs to make their reads quickly enough, or a failure of the receivers to get open? I addressed a lot of this just now, with Wilson in particular. And hey, Fields is not Joe Montana, Joe Burrow, quick reader either. I mean, he is a hold it, tap the ball, see it, and throw it guy too. Anticipation is not his strength either. But I'm glad I picked this question because better receivers would help. I'm not advocating that they should have kept Deontay Johnson. That looked like a very smart move in hindsight. But his style of receiver, beat man coverage, get open quick. They don't have a lot of those dudes. I mean, the receivers in general aren't all that great, but they don't have a lot of route runners. Quick separating guys, especially against man coverage. So I do urge you to listen to the podcast earlier this week when I really break down sack differential. Some of it's encouraging, especially from the offensive line perspective. But I didn't mention this, and I think that this is a really good point that Scranzy makes here, though, is an upgrade of pass catchers, namely wideouts, would help as well. If your quarterbacks let it fly. You know what I mean? So, team game. Matt Sable asks, do you think the Steelers would benefit from more coaches like senior assistants and passing running game coordinators, or do these positions become redundant at some point? I like this question a lot too. There are the Steelers are not high on the list in terms of number of assistant coaches. There are some teams that have way too many, in my opinion. Like, I can't imagine what a coaches only meeting is like in some of these rooms, because there's just so many bodies in there. There's teams with 4 offensive line coaches, 3 defensive back coaches, specialty coaches, blah, 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 blah. Now, could the Steelers, I'm not saying they're cheap, but I mean, could they spend more or add another? I wouldn't object to it, but especially in the way that you're talking about with like these senior assistants. Now, this is not meant to be, I need someone to come in here and challenge Tomlin, hire Bill Parcells or, someone like that. No, but I would love to see them hire someone from outside the organization that has never had any ties with the Steelers, doesn't know the Steeler way except from afar. Maybe on both sides of the ball, certainly on defense, and comes from a total different background. And someone who's been semi-retired, got pelts on the wall, and could just say, what if we do this totally different? We did this cloud coverage the total opposite way. We showed this blitz but never brought it, and it really worked. Just a fresh set of eyes that has been around the block that would immediately gain respect the minute he walks in the building. Everyone knows who he is. If I passed him in the hallway when I was down there, I'd be like, oh, I remember him. He was a head coach 10 years ago. Or, what really good defensive coordinator. Probably older, semi-retired, give him specialty projects or whatever. But I don't think it's a bad idea, I guess, is the bottom line. Especially a fresh set of eyes that has never worked or played for the Steelers. That doesn't mean you can't bring in guys that did. I mean, if Antoine Randall wanted to come back, or Deshae Townsend or whatever, those guys are all in coaching, Hines Ward, etc. I'm not saying don't hire those guys, but a total fresh set of eyes and different way of thinking can't hurt. 2 things here that are back-to-back. Andrew Straley asks, I'm confused about the offensive line. Clearly their play this year is below the line, too young, players overrated, Siamalu in decline. How do you fix it? And then my man Joey Bag of Donuts asks, is it too early to call Broderick Jones a bust? Second one first, I think it's too early to call Broderick Jones a bust. If you look at his play, it was much more under control post-bye. Wasn't perfect. It's not where you want him to be trading up in the first round 2 years ago. But he's really young. He doesn't have a lot of experience. I think jerking him around between left and right tackle hasn't done him any favors. I tend to think that he prefers to be on the left side and will probably be the left tackle where Fautanu will be the right. Probably, but that's just a hunch. Back to Andrew. I don't think Siamalu had a great year. But he also had a pec injury very early in the year that you can't ignore because he fought through it. Like, how much benching could he do all year? I also think that they're young guys, and they basically admitted this in some interviews. Frazier and McCormick hit somewhat of a rookie wall against awesome competition. So that was kind of two bad things happening at once. These dudes are like, I've never played this much football. I've certainly never played 3 games in 11 days. I've never played on Sunday and then had to play on Thursday. I've played a ton of football going back to camp and, all the preseason reps they got. I'm pretty beat up. So I think that's part of it. I think you have to evaluate the offensive line coach and how they're coaching things. And I'm not an offensive line expert, and I know a lot of people are calling for Coach Meyer's head. I really don't have a wonderful evaluation to say boy, he's a bad O-line coach because X, Y, Z. Look at this. Look at this hand placement here. It never gets better. Because I do think he's developed some young guys. And I also think that we cannot overlook the injuries. Now, the injuries didn't come for a while, but Herbig was the starting center. I mean, I'm sure Frazier would have went past him, but the day Herbig went out, he was the starting center. James Daniels is going to make a lot of money in the open market. He's a good starting guard. You lost those two quick. And how many teams didn't get anything out of their first round pick this year? And that's a guy I loved. I mean, I thought that was an easy selection on draft day. Run to the podium. I think at that point, and the little I've seen in person, that he might be a star, for Otanu. So I know that they got lucky with injuries after that. I mean, the second half of the year, the last 2/3 of the year. But the guys they planned on playing weren't there, I mean, so I'm not avoiding the question, not giving them a pass because it is below the line and they've put a lot of resources in there. But I think it's a more of a to-be-determined situation than it is, man, this O-line coach, Omar, going all in on these draft picks didn't work. I'm not there yet. Or that Broderick Jones will never be a good player. I'm not there yet either. So I hope that there's a little bit of encouragement or at least some logic to why it went the way it did. And frankly, even when everyone was healthy, I expected the O-line to be a work in progress, and hopefully by December, Thanksgiving and later, it would have gelled and gotten better and better. And that didn't quite happen, of course, and I think some of the things I mentioned also had something to do with that. But I expected more too. As we stand here postseason, I did expect it to be in a better spot than it is today. All right, everyone, take care. Over and out.